the first conversion happened already with the disciples of Jesus or with the people who wrote the Hebrew Bible. And so we have to go back to the distinction and the similarity between ancient myth on the one hand and the biblical texts on the other. And Girard was struggling with that question for many, many years because his book, La Violence et le Sacré, Violence and the Sacred, he was working on this book for 10 years and wanted to include the biblical texts also. So he wanted to give a comprising view of early religions and the biblical religions. And after 10 years, he had to cut short and just publish the book on the sacred, and was only later able to publish a second book, Things Hidden, that focuses on the biblical texts. The problem for Girard was that there is a similarity and a dissimilarity between the mythological texts and the biblical texts. And one of the helpers he found was Friedrich Nietzsche, who, interestingly, not a Christian and not a religious person in a official sense. Friedrich Nietzsche understood that there is a parallel between the mythological texts and the Bible. So both texts are describe martyrdom or persecution of single individuals. So there is no distinction in this sense what is described, and that's very important. But the distinction is the interpretation of the events. Whereas the mythological text say side with the group against the persecuted individual, against the scapegoat. The biblical text describe the same event, but side with the scapegoat and accuse the group of scapegoating. And this is a dramatic shift that enables a deep insight and overcoming of the scapegoat mechanism. And now there is one danger that I was not aware when I started to study that. You can think about, okay, in Greek mythology, you have texts who side with the group against the individual. And in the biblical texts, you have many texts who side with the persecuted individual against the group. So are the Greek people bad people and the people who wrote the Hebrew Bible good people, and hopefully I am the good side? No, it's a little bit more complicated. If you go back to the second Isaiah, you can see that the interesting thing about the biblical literature, and it's the same for the disciples of Jesus, that they in the beginning were also persecutors. So in the second Isaiah, they say, we felt he was wrong, this was a bad person. But then suddenly they saw, no, it was we who persecuted this guy. And if you talk about the disciples of Jesus, in the critical situation, they ran away or denied that they knew Jesus and were on his side. So the biblical texts are not the result of good people distinguished from the bad people who did mythological texts. The biblical texts are the result of people who were persecutors and through a special insight suddenly became aware of their persecution and rehabilitated the persecuted victim. So it's the same people, but in the one sense you have conversion and the other not.